Now, when it comes to OEM integration, we've had so many great solutions come to the market of late. Full turnkey packages that absolutely sound great and are easy to install without sacrificing the fit and finish of OEM. Well, Alpine is at it again with a new layer to get into the mix. It's called Bass Rev, and it's a whole new take on how to optimize sound and get real frequency response out of OEM integration situations. Today, we have their product expert Colin joining us to break it all down. This is CMA Connected, brought to you by SiriusXM, all about Alpine, and it starts now. What's going on, guys, and welcome to another CMA Connected, brought to you by SiriusXM. I'm your host, Ben Wu, and you are tuned into CMA Networks, where we talk mobile electronics day in and day out. The brand today is Alpine, and let me tell you, when Alpine puts their mind to something, it's always going to be a game changer. And we are happy here to talk about, for the first time, the next chapter in performance, sound, integration, you name it. We're going to learn all about it. I want to welcome our guest today, Colin from Alpine. Colin, can you give us a sneak peek on what we're going to be covering on today's Connected?
Hey, Ben, glad to be here. This is Colin with Alpine. Today, we're going to be talking about a brand new product from Alpine called Bass Rev. It's a way to get tons and tons of bass output out of even smaller speaker options. Stay tuned to learn more.
All right, Colin, we're going to be talking about Bass Rev and what that's all about. But before that, a quick opportunity for our partner, SiriusXM, to remind you why it's always a great add-on sale. And when we come back after the break, we're going to get to know what Alpine Bass Rev is all about.
Hey, Paul here with SiriusXM, and I'd like to talk to you about attachment selling and why the SiriusXM product is one of the best things to add, especially since we don't trade dollars with any other category. I could go through all of this, but let's hear what some of our dealers have to say.
It's an easy add-on that takes, 10, 15 minutes if we're running an antenna, 1 minute if we've got an adapter to plug it into the factory SiriusXM antenna, and it's extra money, so no brainer.
I present it to every customer because a lot of customers don't know what all they can do with Sirius. They don't know what all content they could have. It just makes too much sense not to sell it.
It creates a different customer loyalty and customer security when you explain to them why it's a better experience. Just gets them back in the door. And then the next car, they're already asking for it again. So it just keeps selling itself. It makes more sense.
Well, there you have it. You heard from our dealers. Just remember some of the best practices. Make sure you have one on display so you can demo it. Make sure you're taking advantage of our rewards program, because if you're not taking advantage of that, you're leaving even more money on the table. Make sure you got our POP up on display. And other than that, just make sure you're recommending it.
And welcome back to the show. Joining us now from Alpine, up top here, we got product specialist Mr. Colin Vargo. How you doing, Colin? And of course, joining us again is our good friend Gord Brown, who's the director of sales of Gentech, who is the Canadian distribution partner for all things Alpine. Let's get into it, gentlemen. We're here to talk about a brand new release for Alpine. It's called Bass Rev. So before we even get into the specifics, the technology, and what the products are all about, I'm going to go to you, Colin, first. What is the purpose of coming out with yet another series of speakers, is what I'm assuming?
Yes, speakers and subwoofers through, in the future. So we're basically we wanted to solve a problem where, we have smaller speakers in a lot of cars today, and a lot of guys are saying, I'm just not getting enough bass out of my vehicle. I want more mid-bass performance. I need things to dig low. And even sometimes we get customers that say, hey, I want the most amount of bass I can get without putting a subwoofer in. I have a vehicle that I just can't fit a sub in no matter what. So what Bass Rev does, gives you a ton more low-end output. And it does that in conjunction with Optim in particular. And it's actually using an algorithm in Optim to make the most out of extra excursion from the Bass Rev speaker and allowing it to deliver tons more low end, especially in the 40 to 80 hertz region where really a lot of, main speakers can kind of have a deficiency. So.
Interesting. Okay, so let's break that down for people tuning in. So, of course, we're talking Alpine. We're talking in the context of OEM integration, and Optim has been an amazing platform for people to get great sound out of vehicles, DSP, great power, easy to integrate, so on and so forth. Now what you're saying, just repeating what you just said here, a new series of speakers that will have greater low-end output and designed to work in conjunction with the Optim amplifiers. Gord, how many times have we had a customer disappointed by changing their speaker, spending the money, only to come back to the shop and say, "What? I don't know about you, but I think I have less bass than before."
Yeah, those OEM DSPs can really kind of play mind tricks with you, right? So, you think they sound better because they've kind of been kind of dialed into a couple of specific frequencies. And when we pull all that out and we go to a better sounding speaker package, better amplifiers, even adding DSP, it's challenging because in some cases you're actually hearing things that you didn't hear before, and it really changes your perspective of that music. So it's really great that we've got an opportunity now to take advantage of not only DSP and amplifiers where we've kind of entered with Optim, but now taking it to the next level where nobody's really addressed that with a speaker package before.
This is very unique, and I talk a lot of car audio on a daily. You guys know this. I've not heard of this type of attack or strategy on optimizing, right, this scenario whereby you want to upgrade speakers, you have the amplifier, and together they're working in conjunction to maximize that, final result. So, Colin,
Yeah.
I'm stabbing in the dark here. I'm taking guesses here. So you're talking new speakers. We're talking sub. It works in conjunction with Optim.
Yes.
I get that there's going to be some electrical or electronic kind of add-on or benefit from working with Optim, right? I get that part, but there has to be some physical changes or some physical attributes that make these new speakers special and do what they need to do. So without further ado, I know you got some information for us. Why don't we pass it off to you so we can get into this world of what Bass Rev is from Alpine?
Yeah, so one of the things that Bass Rev is going to do is it adds unique selections in the Optim software to choose the specific Bass Rev speaker you're connecting to. That's going to automatically set the crossover points and impart the Bass Rev algorithm for that particular speaker. So you can choose Bass Rev tweeter or the 4-inch component or the 4-inch coax, and it's automatically going to set everything up in the Optim for you. So the power of the Optim DSP is going to impart its own specific algorithm that enhances the bass output specific to the Bass Rev speaker. So it's taking advantage of the extra excursion the Bass Rev speaker can produce and making the most of it via the DSP itself. So as far as bass output goes, it's actually going to make a 4-inch speaker perform more like a 5 1/4. It'll make your 6.5-inch speaker perform more like an 8-inch. And it'll actually make your 8-inch perform like a giant 10-inch mid-bass driver. So it delivers tons and tons more output in that low-end department. So the Bass Rev algorithm is actually using the processing power in Optim to calculate the excursion of the speaker that it's actually connected to and make the most out of it. It's actually modifying what the Optim is sending to that speaker, and it actually changes the parameters even of the Optim amplifier itself. Because of that, this is an Optim 8 only technology. So Optim 8 obviously has the amplifier built into it. Optim 6 does not. So Bass Rev is for Optim 8 only because it's not only changing the DSP parameters, but it's actually changing the amplifier parameters as well.
Yeah, Ben, one of the things that we've really kind of neglected as we've been using DSP and Alpine's amplifier technology for a very long time, but something we've never really approached was how does the speaker handle the DSP when we're applying that much emphasis to some of those frequencies and tunings. And this is the first time where we've actually got a speaker technology that was built from the ground up very specifically to address those concerns, give that kind of excursion and the bass response that we need so we can leverage that and get smaller speakers to do more in a car.
I love the optimization. And I want to point out, if you weren't paying close attention, when you go and set up your channel routing in Optim, they're preloaded with each specific Bass Rev speaker already ready to go. There's nothing to think about. If you're putting in the 6.5, choose the 6.5. You're putting in that 4, put in the 4. It's done. I love that. So Colin, great job on that. Now, that's the electronic portion. Now I want to get into the physics, because for me, that's kind of what makes things interesting. I want to see what Alpine kind of figured out here. So I'm going to let you go back to helping us understand this more excursion business that you're talking about with these new Bass Rev speakers.
So what we're looking at here is a quick comparison between our super popular S2 S65C and its output compared to the new Bass Rev S65C. The Bass Rev speaker actually has about 6 millimeters more excursion. So The S2 is about 22 millimeters, and the Bass Rev is a full 28 millimeters. That's about 30% more excursion. That allows it to dig down to 38 hertz, where the S2 really falls off after about 70 hertz or so. So tons and tons more low frequency extension out of that Bass Rev speaker in the same size hole. So this is kind of showing the frequency response graph of the Bass Rev speaker versus the S2, and you can see how much more bass impact is actually added on the bottom end. It's a tremendous amount in that 40 to 80 hertz range, and it even continues all the way up to almost about 100 hertz or so as far as output capability. Tons and tons more low frequency response, but with no cost to sound quality itself. So there's a few new technologies in the Bass Rev speaker, one of them being the Hedge Surround. It's a clever acronym that stands for High Excursion Design Gathered Edge. It is a high excursion surround that helps keep the cone moving in and out in a linear fashion. So now when that speaker is reaching these extra 6 millimeters of excursion and the 6.5, it helps keep that cone centered as it's reaching the edge of the magnetic gap. Makes that speaker work like a piston instead of a paint shaker. The material design, it's a combination of a polypropylene cone with a mica dusting in it that creates a very rigid, stiff cone material. That cone is actually a unique lapel-shaped cone. That unique lapel-shaped cone helps keep that cone ultra rigid again when it's reaching that extra excursion capability. So it helps keep distortion down, keep that cone in a stiff, uniform movement. Next product we want to talk about in this lineup is specifically the face-synced 6.5-inch coax. And it's almost less of a coax and more of a point source speaker because the tweeter is recessed in the middle of the cone of the woofer. So instead of sticking out on a bridge and kind of extending past the woofer cone, it's actually recessed into it. That helps kind of manually timeline the tweeter to the woofer. And it also allows the cone of the woofer to act as almost a waveguide for the tweeter, helping disperse high frequency at extreme angles. So a lot of times these speakers are installed in the door of a car. They're kind of aimed at your knees and you're sitting way off to the side of them. This helps keep that frequency response at the top end very, very good, even at an off-axis location. And if you have challenges with how much can stick off of the front of the speaker, the Bass Rev might fit into a lot of applications that a conventional coax does not. And phenomenal technology. It's pretty unique in the car audio space. This technology, it's not Alpine specific. It does exist a lot in home audio speakers, but we're one of the few guys to do this in the car audio space. Up here we have the 5 different Bass Rev models, and you may notice some traditional car audio sizes that are missing from this lineup, and that's partially because with the Bass Rev technology and the extra excursion that these speakers are making, doesn't always lend itself well to oval cones. So these are all in round cone type of format. So we have our Bass Rev 4-inch component, we have our Bass Rev 4-inch coax, our Bass Rev 6.5-inch component, our Bass Rev 6.5 point source, which technically is a coax, and our 8-inch component set. One other important thing to note that because it's designed from the ground up to use Optim as its crossover, when you put in, like Ben was saying, you put in your Bass Rev speaker and it automatically plugs in the crossover points for you. This is an active technology in all of the component sets. The coaxes do have a filter on board so they can be run off of one amplifier channel, but really in the component series we want one set of amplifier channels running to the tweeter and another one running to the woofer. That allows us to give more control over what we're sending to just the woofer and what we're sending to just the tweeter itself.
All right. Well, you covered a lot there. Thank you for those explanations. But of course, as usual, I've got some questions. Question number one: Did I just hear that even the component set will not be coming with a passive crossover in the box?
That's correct. That's correct. These are intended to work active, and Optim having 8 channels, you're easily able to do 2-way active in the front, 2-way passive in the rear, and then 2 sub channels off Optim. So,
okay. So just beware when you're going to order these guys. There is no passive crossover in the box. They're meant to work with the Optim, which has the crossovers already pre-programmed for each model. Okay, perfect. The other question, you mentioned that there are no like 4x6s, 6x9s, and that type of stuff. Gord, what's your take on that?
Yes.
Well, again, Ben, coming from the audio side, like the true audio side, that's, oval speakers are something that are very challenging to work with. And, while it's convenient and it kind of gives the benefit, like for example, a 6x9 gives the benefit of a little more bass than say a 6.5. We've already overcome that challenge by using the technology that Optim is using in combination with the Bass Rev speakers. So that 6.5 is already delivering like an 8-inch type performance. The 8-inch is delivering a subwoofer type performance. So we don't need to kind of cheat to use an oval size speaker just to maximize the space that's available in a door or a back deck, when we can use the benefit of a better sounding speaker instead and use the benefits of the Optim software to go with it.
Very, very cool. Another question, this time for Colin. So let's go back to that really cool acronym, HEDGE. I got to give props to whoever thought of that at Alpine. Kudos for that. Looking at that diagram with the difference in excursion, you used, I believe, in that diagram, standard S-type Alpine speaker.
Yes, sir.
One of the concerns I would have is, I'm like, am I expecting like a really boomy kind of sound? Because I mean, usually when you're looking at super high excursion type drivers, yeah, you're going to get more low end, but you're going to lose the crispy details.
So the Bass Rev speaker, really where it's excelling is in, low frequency department. It's gonna have more bass output. Whether it sounds boomy or not really kind of falls into how you tune it. So we got to remember that the Optim processor has its target curve in it, so you can still fine tune the sound at the end of the day to give you the bass where you want it and not where you don't.
Right. So again, the salt and pepper aspect at the end, still an option. You can kind of dial in exactly how you like it off that, pre-programmed curve that's already in there. The other thing we didn't talk about, and I'd like to ask you a question about this, Colin, again, in the component set, what kind of tweeter are we talking about?
So this is actually a textile dome tweeter that has very, very smooth output on the top end. We at Alpine, we tend to stay away from tweeters that are harsh to the ears. Historically, we've always made primarily silk dome tweeters. More recently, we've come up with some new technologies that have smooth response from some metal domes. But we went back to a textile dome on the Bass Rev speakers.
Okay, so again, I'm expecting a nice smooth Alpine sound that we're all used to. Okay, my last question: what about efficiency? Are these speakers meant to be like? Do they take a lot of power, or do they really match to the output that the Optim gives out?
They're really matched to the amplifier power built into the Optim. In fact, you'll notice that the power ratings are pretty much what the Optim delivers. So it's a perfect package to put those two together. I won't say they're the most efficient speaker, but they're far from the least efficient either. They fall in the middle, which is kind of to be expected for a speaker that's making tremendous bass output. Typically, as you try to gain efficiency, you tend to lose low end response. So there's a little bit of trade-off there when you're going into a more efficient speaker.
And my last question, if as a dealer, as a consumer, as an enthusiast, if I'm looking at the chart of the Alpine layout of all the different products, the S-type, the R-type, so on and so forth, from a price point perspective, where will these Bass Rev speakers land?
Price-wise, they're going to fall right between S2 and R2, right in the middle there. So.
All right, fantastic. Gord, anything else you'd like to add to this? I mean, this is a brand new product. I know we all haven't had a chance to play with it yet, but what are you looking forward to most?
Honestly, I think this is going to be one of those things we can really put together as a package where, again, DSP and amplifier in the past has kind of stood on its own island, separate of your speaker choices and your subwoofer choices that you're using in your package. This is really that first effort where we're trying to tie the entire family of products together that are designed to complement and work together with each other. So I'm really looking forward to having the products where we can get, cars that, for example, the family dad, let's call it, where it's just not a subwoofer friendly environment. You got to put stuff in the trunk. It's going to be your grocery getter, whatnot. It's a new way where we can idealize and kind of get a car that will have, kind of sub type sound without necessarily having a sub, or going well beyond that into a subwoofer environment and taking an 8-inch or a 10-inch environment and creating what we typically would have used like a 12. So those are the things that I think that we're going to be able to really take advantage of with the combination of the Optim products with Bass Rev.
I'd like to take this opportunity and thank my guests, both Colin from Alpine as well as Gord from Gentech International. Now, if you want any more information, I'm sure Alpine will publish information as it comes to light at alpine-usa.com. Super exciting, guys. I love it when brands like Alpine put some muscle behind engineering and create new products that have fantastic features that solve a problem. How many times have we put in speakers that didn't perform from the bass side of things like the original speaker did? I mean, I can tell you firsthand, it made me look silly in front of some customers sometimes. Well, here comes Alpine with a solution that not only ties in integration through their Optim DSP amplifiers, but also delivers amazing low-end performance combined in a package that is sure to make every listener out there that wants better bass and sound in their car super happy. So on that note, thanks for tuning into this CMA Connected brought to you by SiriusXM. I'm your host, Ben Wu. Until next time, we connect.